Today, you are going to hear a deeply candid conversation with Phil Norman, principal of Norman Design Group, to explore the complex, often contradictory realities of luxury residential design. So with over 25 years of experience crafting high-end interiors in Southern California, Phil brings both practical wisdom and an unfiltered perspective on the challenges designers face today. And part of that exploration is a willingness to be open and candid about the challenges as well as the solutions. Honesty about budgets. Phil dives headfirst into one of the most taboo topics in interior design. We all have to talk about it, but the budget. He explains why being forthright, even when the numbers are higher than a client expects, is not just necessary, but an act of professional integrity. Phil shares strategies for diffusing tension around cost conversations and how client trust is forged in transparency, not fantasy. Educating the client, battling Pinterest, misinformation, and HGTV. Home as sanctuary, which is really a pandemic shift. Kitchen as mission control, designing with precision. Design leadership, advocacy, not subservience. It's really interesting. I think that you're going to get, if you're a designer, architect, or other creative in the industry, you're going to get a very interesting perspective on how Phil handles almost all of the challenges that one would have to face in this industry on a daily basis. But also, if you're the other side of the business, if you're a brand or a showroom manager or a multi-line rep or someone who works with designers and architects, this gives you an absolutely incredible inside look at how they think about what they do. It's really, really cool. And I think you're going to love it. If you've listened to the show for any amount of time, you've heard me say this, that the most important word in the design industry is service. Product is important, price is important, selection is important, but stellar service is the premier idea that can make all the difference in the success of a project, any project. How design professionals like you demand great service and your favorite brands in one place with expert, knowledgeable, and non-commission sales professionals. It's really important. It means that their only incentive is your satisfaction. Pacific Sales, Kitchen and Home, a Best Buy company, has just that with over 60 years of experience in Southern California. Pacific Sales is your destination for exploration, advice, and inspiration. Now, you have the Pacific Sales Kitchen and Home team to help you and offer their Pro Rewards program, which is a trade program unlike any you have experienced before. Earn 3% in Best Buy gift cards, e-gift cards, or 2.5% in rewards checks for every qualified and delivered sale. In addition to special trade pricing, exclusive offers, access to exclusive special events, and so much more than I could possibly tell you about here. And the cherry on top is access to exclusive builder trade incentives from top brands and the stellar service, again, from a company that has been serving the industry for over 60 years. Terms and conditions apply to the Pro Rewards program and builder trade incentives. So visit a Pacific Sales expert at a showroom today for full details and to learn how you can unlock additional savings and benefits. Don't miss out on the opportunity to work with the best of the best. Visit Pacific Sales Kitchen and Home today and elevate your projects to new heights. Whenever I look at the backgrounds, it's funny. I don't, as you can attest, I don't send out questions for our conversations. And I do that because I don't want canned answers. I don't want fully prepped canned answers. This is a conversation, not a Q&A, right? But I do a great deal of prep for this. And when I see someone who graduated with a BFA in interior design from Iowa State, I always look at the colleges. That's a first for me. Okay, I have so many questions for you, but what did you learn from design school that is applicable in your career now?
Well, I think I would. I'm really surprised that you didn't realize that Iowa was the, world mecca of design. I mean, that's where all amazing, progressive ideas just emanate from. The Midwest. It's just all packaged there.
Okay, first of all, let me back up because I'm going to ask the question again because I'm curious. And I'm curious because I have this conversation all the time about design school and what a degree in design actually does. I was talking to a friend of mine, Brian Pinkett from Landry Design Group, about what architecture school does, receiving a degree in architecture does for an architect. And he said, it didn't really teach me how to design. It taught me how to be a critical thinker. I thought that was really interesting.
Hmm.
So I'm curious on your take about design. And by the way, it's interesting because living in Tulsa, I can tell you firsthand, and having had the opportunity to travel around the Midwest, and we joke about it, but there's some amazing design happening in the Midwest, the design flyovers, as I like to call them. But it's also not new. Just nobody was paying attention.
Right, right. Yeah, it's often overlooked. It's less flashy, less I think maybe a little less marketable, but definitely real design happening for real people. What did I learn in design school? I think I learned takeaway for there was how to work hard, how to put in the hours, how to do the grind that is behind all design projects, and just making sure that the right time and commitment is put in. And I think just working very hard towards your goal and learning to just stay the path and don't get swayed away from it.
I love that. So when did you move to Los Angeles?
I moved to Los Angeles in 2004 with a couple of stops in between from Iowa.
Okay. When you got to LA, did you gravitate immediately to the South Bay or did you start elsewhere?
I started in San Diego and worked for a number of firms there, kind of growing my way up into like a lead designer, senior designer. And then actually I met my wife in San Diego. Her family was in at Los Angeles, and I had no family. I have no family west of the Rockies. So I'm starting the first Norman branch west of the Rockies. So, when you meet somebody with a great family and has the Sunday night family dinners and everything that you miss, it was kind of a no-brainer. Obviously, we wanted to get married, and then therefore I moved up to Los Angeles to start our life here.
And what was the impetus for hanging your own shingle, for going out on your own after working? And it's interesting because you have certain creatives who start out of design school, they do the work, then they hang the shingle on their own, they go right into their practice. You have others who forego design school, who go and work with other firms, learn that way, and then go out on their own. I think there's a certain value to getting the formal education, then going and seeing how others do it, and figuring out both what you want and what you don't want in your own firm. When did you know it was the right time to do it yourself?
Well, when I worked in, I think it goes back to the original question of like, what did you learn at design school? And what I learned at the design school was my education was very strong in interior architecture and weaker in the fabrics and the soft goods and the decorating aspect of it. And I think as all designers go through design school, they never want to be called an interior decorator. And then as you get more involved in your career and you realize that being a good interior decorator is equally as important as being an interior designer, and actually they work hand in hand. And being a good interior decorator is not a step down. It's equally as important. So when I worked in some various firms in San Diego, I just wasn't getting that balance of like a 50-50. I wanted more, I wanted bigger projects, I wanted more substantial projects. I just wasn't getting like wasn't really feeding my soul in some of the firms that I work with. So when I moved to Los Angeles, I had saved some money, and honestly, I was like, okay, I think this is going to last me 1 year, and either I'm going to, I'm going to succeed, or I'm going to fall flat on my face. And I'm okay with either one, but if I don't go for it, I'll have that, feeling the rest of my life that I didn't do it. So I went for it, moved up to LA, literally kind of pre iPhones, and had my camera, drove around South Bay and other affluent neighborhoods, and I took pictures of job site fences, and came back and look at them, and I was like, okay, here's a builder, here's an architect. All right, there's a lighting designer on this one. Who's who. Started looking them up, and just literally cold called those people and just said, hey, I'm new to the area. Can you give me 15 minutes? Love to show you my portfolio. Love to show you what I can do. I'm sure you work with really great, talented interior designers, but I'd love to get a foot in the door and at least show you what we can do. And it goes back to even marketing efforts today, which I still practice, and that is more personal reach outs and making personal connections with people. I think people are hungry for it. I think it took a big pause, and I think there's nothing like a personal connection, especially when it comes to design. I was met with favorable eyes from various architects, and I didn't run out of money yet. 20 years ago. Although it's a daily concern for all of us entrepreneurs, and I guess fear is a good motivator.
Yeah, no, totally. But Phil, seriously, genius. And I'm so glad that you said that because it's interesting. There's a really a thick, dark line of delineation between those who can walk up to a stranger or call a stranger on the phone and put themselves out there and talk to them versus those who will stick exclusively to messaging a social media site or sending an email. It's almost like a lost art. And it's funny, and I ask about the design school too, because I think there's so much about the design school curriculum that just isn't applicable anymore or doesn't address so many issues for the industry now. I think that there really is a need for the ability to go out and talk to someone and a need for someone to say, hey, you know what? There's value in interior decoration and decor, as opposed to those who just want to call themselves, for sake of title, an interior designer. It's a different thing.
It definitely is. And I think when we work on these larger scale projects and we're working through the interior architecture, I often feel just the innate energy of a client without saying it, like, can we hurry up and get done with this so we can get to like the good stuff, the more tangible things. And we all know that both are important, but a lot of the times it's like, all right, come on, when do we get to what's behind me in my screensaver, and the finished the product with everything on the bookshelves and the floral arrangements, the lamps and the sofas and everything like that. So it is it's an interesting partnership, and I think really successful designers can talk both languages.
That, and I'm curious, what is your process by which you educate your new clients? And it's funny too, because this is sort of part and parcel of a successful firm means that you have the opportunity to select your clientele. Some firms don't have that opportunity. They don't want to run out of money, so they have to take everyone. Um, as you sort of gain steam and gather steam as a firm, you have the ability to sort of upgrade your clientele, get rid of the problems, and a lot of clients are problems. But you get to hand select the clients you want to work with. How do you onboard your clients so that you make them good clients, and which allows you to do your best work?
Well, that's a great question, and I'm not sure if we have the exact solution, but we're always trying. I think recently, in an attempt to onboard clients properly and tell and inform them and educate them on the various components of a project, we've spent a decent amount of time developing a welcome kit for clients, and that touches on various points of the project. You know, how as a design firm, how does Phil and Norman Design Group work with contractors, and then, you know, various bullet points below. Do you provide furnishings in the decoration part, you know, and then there's bullet points below. We walk them through sample budgets for the decorating part of the project. We run them through, hey, don't forget installation and storage. That's a big money component in a project that a lot of designers, including myself, just kind of assumed the client would, of course, you know, we're going to ship all this to a warehouse in LA. And of course, we're going to hold it for 9 months because your project's not ready. And of course, it's going to cost you $6,000 a month. Oh, you didn't know that? We didn't talk about, you know, the $60,000 in storage that you would have to pay, which is a real thing. And do I love to talk about that kind of stuff? I do. Sometimes my honesty and, you know, forthright conversations, I guarantee, probably eliminates me from jobs, because I do try to honestly lay out the financial investment that it will take to do a project from start to finish. I identify them, and, you know, I'll just call them like buckets. You know, there's the interior architecture bucket, and, you know, what goes involved in that, and then the interior decorating, and what, let's make it to the finish line. We all want the finish line. We all want the finished project, but you gotta, you know, I would like to educate people. It's like, let's, if this is the long haul, let's make it to the finish line, holding hands, happy, but we got to talk about money.
Do you, when you're talking to clients, and this is probably, there's a couple of tough questions. There's a lot of tough questions that you have to ask, because the understanding of the finances in design and architecture, I think, is a different story, but in design in particular, it's such a, it's such an enigma, because clients have no idea what things cost. And you have to A, educate them, and B, teach them why that's important. Certain things like $6,000 a month for storage. Someone would say, well, I don't want to do that. Let's just order it and it'll get here when it gets here. And then you have to explain how the pandemic changed irreparably our supply chain here in the United States. But then you also have to explain tariffs, and you have to have the business side of it. You have to talk about a 20% cushion because it's going to cost more than the budget. How do you have the budget conversation, and how do you elicit an honest response? And sorry, I'm just bundling this question to death,
Yeah.
but and how do you get the honesty required from your clients so that you can work with real numbers?
Well, I think the honesty has to come from them. That may be talking to multiple people, and they're going to get multiple answers. Um, I think we are looking for the client that wants to have an honest conversation about what it's going to take to build a home. Um, I think there's so much pressure on anyone that's going to build a home. If it's their dream home and they're going to do it one time, obviously lots of people do multiple, you know, custom homes, but a lot of people don't. And if it's their one shot to do it right, you know, they're a bit paralyzed by making them by the fear of making mistakes. Of course, that's our job, to be their advocate and shepherd them through all the processes. but it does come with a. When we talk about budgets, I just say, I need a realistic budget. And if there's a comment or some numbers that are discussed that are unrealistic, I will just say, we have thousands of vendors, and we work on second homes to fifth homes. Do we want a second home budget in your custom home that you are going to be your primary and your primary resident? And the answer, most obviously, is most of the time is no. And I was like, well, we can't do that then. And then so here's the numbers that what I would say would be, if you like our finished project on our website, this is how much they cost per square foot. Does everyone like the answer what it costs? Of course not. Things are expensive. It's very expensive to build, but if you're not honest about it, it just perpetuates itself into resentment, upset clients, lack of a teamwork feel, lack of transparency. It just snowballs, and that's no good. So yes, I might lose jobs at the front of the project by being very honest about what things cost, but the ones that make it through the filter, I guess, are the ones that are meant to be, for Norman Design Group. And I will say that a lot of people building custom homes are possibly just misled by price per square foot from their friends, because sometimes it becomes almost a competition. Like, I built my custom home for $700 a square foot, and then so now they think that's the marker. But honestly, it was probably $1,300, but that friend didn't really want to say that. And I think I would just advise anybody building a custom home is just to get some numbers of what it's going to cost to build a beautiful home, price per square foot. Ask lots of architects, builders, get honest answers, and timelines too. Josh, I mean, timelines are just, it takes some thick skin and good marriages to build a custom home in today's world.
I would agree with that, but I would also say that it takes a good marriage, a strong marriage, and thick skin to do anything home related these days.
It does, and I think, maybe touching to a point of, leaving the financial conversation, and yes, the resiliency to make all these decisions, which there's thousands of them, um, and agree with them. Husband, wife can agree. Well, does designer agree? And where's the appropriate you know right answer there. Clients need to be led, but they also need to have what's appropriate for their dream homes, and that's often a dance as well that needs to happen. And I thought a little bit before I jumped on this interview, and anticipation of maybe a question is like, okay, so what are my best projects? My best projects are when a client gives us a pretty long leash, or a lot of leniency when it comes to making decisions. Like, hey, Phil, I just want to be involved, general concepts, and then I want to stay at a 30,000 foot level on this, and you got to just lead me through that. Those projects are the best for me. They're most satisfying, and I'm telling you, our clients are the happiest if they let the professional do the job. And a lot of these people are, excuse me, a lot of these clients are used to, gosh, hate to say this, but getting their way, leading the way, leading company. They're wealthy, and so sometimes you need to learn when to step back and let the professional do the job.
It's so true. Do you also think something I've been really thinking about lately is our industry, the shelter industry, right, has changed on the residential side dramatically from investing the money that shows to and experiential nature of what a home can possibly be. It has changed, and I think we can all sort of attribute a great deal of this to not just the chaos that everyone's feeling right now, but and experiencing now, but back to the pandemic and that moment, that collective moment where everyone realized that we have a quote unquote luxury space that is completely dysfunctional, just doesn't work. It worked great. Well, when we got tired of our Manhattan Beach home, we could go escape to La Quinta for the weekend or a couple of days and take the kids, jump in the pool, have fun, do whatever, eat at nice restaurants, then come home, go back to work. That's a very specific example, a personal one, but also the fundamentally the way that we talk and think about the home is more experiential than just the money that shows. And I'm curious how that has changed the way that you have those conversations, because that type of conversation is really only 4 or 5 years old.
Yeah, and I'm going to see if I can't. So you kind of teased yourself about bundling questions. I feel like that was a little bit of a bundle, but I'm going to do do my best to answer that. I think being a more seasoned designer comes with life experience of working my rear off, making some money, coming home, and what does my home make me feel like? What kind of experience do I want there? Is it a refuge? Is it a moment of peace? And at a certain level in your life, you start to self-reflect and just say, well, why not me? Why not my house? Why do other people have really nice homes and I don't? Like, I deserve it. I worked hard. I do have some discretionary income. And then I think, the pandemic made us look around and everyone was at home and starting to, self-reflect on their own interior environment. And that's when, some of that interior boom happened. I think, coming back to giving yourself a well-deserved interior that makes you feel really good. You've deserved it. You've worked hard. Why not? Why not? What are you waiting for? At a certain point when we talk about, just health and longevity, is you wait too long, you're never going to be able to enjoy that house. And I think, with my clients, it's all about family. It's all about gathering. It's all about good times, family, friends. And if we can create an environment that fosters all of those things and brings people together, I mean, what better is that? That's the goal for everybody.
You are listening to my conversation with Phil Norman. We'll be right back. At the highest level of design, the absolute best specifying designers, architects, landscape designers are all highly focused on the technology and performance of products and materials today. You have to, because the products you specify for your projects have to perform and they have to last. That's one of the reasons why I am so proud to be working with TimberTech. Their focus on the technical renaissance of synthetic decking is literally changing the conversation about innovation and performance. It pulls focus on 3 priorities homeowners have and expect from the products their designers and architects specify for their luxury projects. 1, aesthetics must match the overall design and fit visually. 2, durability and maintenance. I've told you about my board flipping stories from my own wood decks. Clients not only want beauty, but they want ease and ease of use, and they want it to last for decades. 3, sustainably made. Clients are more conscious of the environment now, and they want the same of their materials. TimberTech hits each one of these elements with a product that not only meets expectations, they exceed them. TimberTech makes a synthetic decking that looks just like wood, color and embossed wood grain for a natural appearance. Their composite decking is technologically superior, as it has been created to last for decades, and it's manufactured with up to 85% recycled material. Their advanced PVC, vintage, and landmark collections have a Class A flame spread rating, making these products an amazing choice for wildfire-prone areas, which unfortunately continues to grow on the risk map. Check the show notes for more information about this and to find the nearest showroom or lumberyard where you can find TimberTech, or you can check them out directly, timbertech.com. I am absolutely thrilled to welcome a new sponsor to the program. First of all, because I love new sponsors to the program, but also because this one is something that each and every one of you has been looking for. Loam AI is a company that has its roots in technology and engineering with a passion for high-quality content development. Listen, designers, architects, landscape architects, shelter industry brands, you know that time is the one thing we can't create, right? So how would you like the power of AI in content development programming that allows you to design instead of editing videos, scripting, and writing your content for social media? Loam AI was created by a team of engineers with a passion for creative content development. This is text to video, so you describe it and Loam AI creates it. It's really amazing. You're going to have to check this out. And they make it simple to change content sizes for different social media outlets. How tired are you of trying to resize the content that you create, or send it out to a freelancer and keep getting the recharges because it has to be put in different sizes? It's a pain, and Loam AI fixes that. It's easy to use, has US-based support if you need it. Let me rephrase. The support is here in the United States if you need it. Stunning images, realistic voices, built-in captions, and it's simple to use. Sign up and try it for free without a credit card at loam-ai.com. I'll say that again, LOME-AI.com. Simple, inexpensive, text to video, harnessing the power of AI to grow your firm beautifully. Yeah, for sure. Totally get it. At the same time, I feel like, and I want your take on this, I feel like, especially on the residential side, things have changed in a technical way, which I don't think has happened in the US in a very, very long time. Specifically, if you look at a kitchen now, are you producing any kitchens anymore on a luxury build or a remodel that don't have scullery, a butler's pantry, or a coffee bar, or a wine bar, or a what I'm calling kitchen plus, right? Are you producing any projects anymore that don't have additional elements like pull-out refrigeration or pull-out warming drawers? Are you dealing with any projects anymore that don't have a more technical view of the kitchen when it relates to a lighting plan, or some other way where maybe you get away from? We used to have, the triangle used to be the tried and true method for the interior architecture of a kitchen and laying it out. Whereas now, with all of the new opportunities come a greater need for zones. That's just one example, using the kitchen as a technical space when it comes to redesign, as opposed to just making a beautiful kitchen on a triangle that works for the family based on the way that the primary cook in the home, in the family, cooks. Are you doing any projects anymore that don't incorporate all those things?
No, I mean, we are definitely incorporating so much technology, new equipment. I mean, I think one of the key questions I get often asked is, well, what are people doing in their kitchen? Give me like they want to know what the latest and the greatest is. And a lot of that comes with A, our experience, and B, are also just perpetuating educational development of being exposed to, what the major manufacturers are doing, what they're offering, the experience centers that we're lucky enough to have in Southern California, to be exposed, even walk through the professional chef and what they're doing. And then, if it's a second home, that's in the grander scale with a scullery, butler's pantry. And then actually yesterday, meeting with a client, we were working with a company that did a walk-in refrigeration room. And that walk-in refrigeration room was not a small room. I mean, it was probably 8 by 12. And within that room, you walked in. It had we had an automated door that you walk into a refrigeration room, and then in that it's going to be an all tiled room, so it's going to be like a cold room. And then within that room, you would have also, walk in freezers beyond just the cooled pantry. And so there's the grander scale of that, coupled with, if you do have like you said, hey, I feel I have a townhome in La Quinta, and we're looking for some upgrades. And obviously, there's no scullery, there's no walk-in refrigeration, maybe not a walk-in pantry, but there's little, micro components of those. Is give me a built-in coffee machine. Like I think where all of our interiors are tailored to just personal experiences. So if I asked you, Josh, what's important to a kitchen, and you rattled off 5 things, and then your next sentence was, well, my kitchen's like a galley kitchen. Well, that's okay, because guess what? We can find those experiences in moments or appliances, and get you all of those experiences. They're just going to be in little micro experiences.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And that is what ultra talented designers do. I just think it's really interesting right now how, we talk about the budget and we talk about the honesty when it comes to establishing a budget and fighting trends and the trendy nature of conversations. You had mentioned, a client saying it was 700 a foot when it was really 1300 a foot. It's human nature. And with so much changing so rapidly in the industry, it's no surprise that clients are confused, and with that confusion, nobody wants to feel like they've gotten taken or that they were taken advantage of. And so without the ability to understand, and I think that's what's so fascinating for me, especially with our industry, and how are clients supposed to get educated prior to having the conversation? Because once they talk to you, it's probably completely overwhelming.
It's overwhelming, and I also would say that a lot of people just still don't have any idea. They're still not educated by the time they get to the interior designer. Like honestly, I'm unraveling a lot of conversations that have just never been had with clients. So, again, going back to experience and saying, don't forget about these 8 things um, that need to be discussed. And we tried pretty hard to expose those talking points in our welcome kit. I'm sure we're missing some, and I think a step or a process exposes itself, every day. And then just to better educate yourself, I feel like no one wants to be told just like a hard number, and that's it. I think what I feel I've done a good job at is giving again. I just want to feel like I'm the advocate for the client, or I'm going to shepherd them through this process. Is all right. We'll just talk to people in good, better, best. Um, like a lot of the times, a number, that's really parallel to our conversation is, okay, modern oceanfront home, lots of glass. Um, budgets are coming out in the bill. Well, do you have a budget for motorized window treatments? No, I don't. Do you want them? Oh yeah, definitely want them. Well, do we realize that that could be, a $100,000 to $200,000 line item? What? No way. And just those little pocket conversations happen all along the process. And I'd like to think we're pretty good at exposing those, and sometimes it's not a great conversation because no one wants to be told, an extra 150 for something they didn't plan for. But at least we tell them, I think, ahead of time. And again, when something is exposed, like AV or window treatments or anything, I use my budgets are based upon a good, better, best, or a low, high, and split the middle for the spread. And I feel like that works out pretty well with most clients.
How do you battle trends?
Well, I think we definitely pay attention to them. I think we design with them in mind, but we don't design for the sake of them. I think we're always trying to design for longevity, classic, staying power, so we can appreciate them, but we have to be careful of them. And clients' exposure to product is somewhat limited to what's on trend or what's on point for what they're seeing, and that's what we have to select from. That's where our mental library is developed. Well, somebody like myself that's had 35 plus years knows that that's great today, and it is cool. Hey, that's really cool. But let's fast forward ourselves 5, 7 years from now, and how are we going to feel about that? So those are the honest conversations that we have within our firm. And even when you pick things out, today for a presentation for a custom home build, those are not going to be installed for 18 months from now or 16 months from now. So you also have to keep that in mind. It's not easy, Josh. It's a balancing act, but I think just with a lot of experience, you just know what's going to stay and what's going to, turn the page.
Yeah. Yes. Eh, but it's one of those things that I would imagine for you is a constant battle. It's interesting, if you get a client who you ask them what they want, and they say, well, we want to definitely display, we want that bookshelf wealth feel, and we want a cashmere kitchen. And it's like, oh gosh, really? Is that what we're doing now? Because if you go back and you think about prior to the pandemic, Marie Kondo and the Kondomari was so hot at the moment where everyone got rid of almost everything they had. And then the pandemic hits, and then you've got to buy everything back again because you can't do anything anymore. It's not just that it's I don't want to call it dangerous. It's not dangerous. What it is it adds to a certain level of dysfunction, I think, it creates confusion because these things like this idea now that's floating around with this cashmere kitchen, I laugh when I see all these trends coming out because it makes potential clients or new clients, your old clients, not old, but the clients that you've worked with before, they kind of get it. Like they know what the experience is like now. But for new clients, they think that that's actually part of the design lexicon. And I think that it's confusing. And I'm just curious how you address, it's almost like having the same kind of conversation as the budget, but how do you address the trendiness that clients will bring to you that maybe they saw on a list from a magazine that generally comes out either November, December, or January, February?
Well, I'm always open for progressive and new ideas, and I love being pushed by a energized client that has lots of ideas. I think it's about the edit, and we can throw it on the table, dump out a visionary box of ideas, and there's 100 ideas, and they're equally excited about all 100. Well, obviously we know that all 100 will not work in the home, and someone needs to edit those. And I think that goes along with the trends as well. Is we establish, what ideas are here to stay, what ideas have longevity, and what ideas are going to be like a flash. Maybe if a client really wants to pursue something that is really on trend, well, then I would just say, well, let's take those components, or like what are we feeling about what's in this picture, or this inspiration photo. Do we need to apply that to your kitchen? Can we take that and can we put that into, a powder room, for lack of a better example, like compartmentalize it a little bit so that if it did need to be changed, it wasn't a large component of their home. And again, I'm just going to go back to experience, and that is when you do dump all those ideas out on a table, having the experience to pick the 25 ideas out of the 100 that's really going to make a great home. And it's a partnership, it's a collaboration. But if you're not, if you're not leading the project, it's going to be a recipe for disaster. Always, it's just going to be a bunch of ideas that don't flow and don't end up for a solid, beautiful home at the end of it. So you got to be strong, lead your client, be a good partner, be compassionate, be collaborative, but you got to have both hands on the wheel. Otherwise, it's a power grab of ideas.
I love that. I think that is a perfect definition for it. And I want to shift gears and transition to, now that we talked about it a little bit, I want to break down some of your projects. And as usual, for those listening, yes, this is a podcast. So we're going to talk through it. But if you want to look at it with us, go to normandesigngroup.com, click on the projects tab, and you can walk through these with us. Phil, the first one I wanted to go through with you. I love this project for so many reasons, and you can pull it up while I'm talking it up. It's the Rolling Hills Modern. I love this project for so many reasons. A number of the reasons actually we talked about already, but this project is completely aspirational. It is a full remodel of what I'm going to assume was a mid-century modern ranch up in PV. The interior architecture of it, the spaces, is just amazing, from the hero image where you're looking at that view to looking at how everything was placed. Tell me about this project.
Sure. So you definitely, nailed it on this. It was a Rolling Hills Ranch. It's a private community, 625 homes. One of the few gated cities in the United States. I think there's three gated cities. I don't know what the other two are because I've been asked. As soon as I say that, everyone says, "Well, what's the other two?"
I
Um,
think one is Hidden Hills,
yes,
perhaps.
yes, I was
Yeah.
going to say that could be a strong contender. Uh, so in this community, very interesting, and my explanation of it might sound like it's going to be extremely boring, but it's every house has to be painted white, and I think there really is only two whites. It's white or white, and every home has to be a one-story ranch. Um, and it can be a contemporary ranch or more of a traditional ranch. And it's an equestrian community. There's 30 miles of equestrian trails through this community. It's a beautiful community, has views, of the ocean, Catalina, downtown, Santa Monica Bay. It has all sorts of different views. It sits kind of almost on a spline of the hill, the Palos Verdes Peninsula. So to get back to the architecture, this house was where I was fortunate enough to be involved in a Cliff May remodel, very large home. In the hero photo that you're mentioning, that was originally a indoor pool. So we excavated the indoor pool and put it out to the outside, so the entertainment doors opened up into the um, beautiful pool that paralleled the entertaining doors. And so that was, that was very interesting to have a large excavator in the future family room of a home. Was something else. I've got pictures and videos of it, but that was Cliff's original, inspiration for the home. But as we talked about earlier, what might have been on trend in the early 60s might not bode well for a younger family with two young kids, and they didn't want an indoor pool for multiple reasons. It was cool and we wanted to respect it, but it just didn't make sense. So we had ultimately like a 3,000 square foot uh, space that we needed to figure out what the heck we were going to do with once we yanked the pool out. So we created this kind of library playroom that was pinned in between these four columns. That you could do crafts, you could do homework, you could study, you could put the kids were into Legos. It was like a Lego center. And then we had a family room uh, aspect of it. And then we had like four really great, comfortable lounge chairs that you could sit and they swivel. When you opened up the entertainment doors at night, you can see the beautiful lights across LA Basin, Santa Monica Bay, the Queen's Necklace. And then we carved out a bar in the area as well. So we kind of had like stages, there's we felt like there was several activities in this space that anyone could have some fun. And then I think we ended up throwing in a glass top ping pong table as well in there, because the husband liked to play ping pong. So we settled on the glass, kind of an artistic ping pong table that suspended itself in the space. So
The skylights, I'm going to assume, were already there.
yes. So the skylights, those skylights that sit on the ridge line are pretty, a signature detail of Cliff Mays. I think, that was inspirational for a lot of architecture that is being done in today's ranch homes in the community and beyond. Um, when we first got the project, again, it was old and things just didn't work, but those were retractable skylights. So if you were in the pool, this could open itself up and then you'd have the beams, but you would have blue sky above, which was pretty cool. And sometimes in renovations, not sometimes, always, it's about spreadsheet decision versus design decision. It was a spreadsheet decision there to, we just couldn't put back the motorized skylights. It just didn't hold value for the client. So we just put in standard skylights, but they still bleed in a lot of great natural light.
Yeah, and I would imagine too, one of the main functions of that above a pool would be for, functionally speaking, would be off-gassing chlorine fumes, and also for cooling and heating, but the way that that house is situated, it doesn't really look like it was necessary. But I think that that's really interesting. This house was definitely not done on a small budget, but it just goes to show that you still have to make choices regardless of what the budget is.
Correct. We kept all the existing wood floors. Those are, I believe I think they're walnut, but now that I'm looking at the picture, I think they might be hickory. But we sanded, bleached, and brought them back into what was more, I think, a lighter tone for today's living. They were that deep kind of Brazilian cherry red orange, just that horrible color. There was a true conversation, and I think that's when you partner with your with your client and, hey, what would I do if it were my house? Um, well, honestly, I think we should let's do a large patch. Let's refinish this thing. Let's bleach the heck out of them. Let's see if we can get that red out of it. And let's see, maybe it's a hidden jewel that we can just, give a breath of fresh air into. And that's what we ended up doing. So those conversations are had throughout the process. We teamed with a great builder, great architect on this, and this is a classic remodel of, hey Phil, we're thinking about buying this house in Rolling Hills, and I think it just needs some paint, and I think we're good to go. We could, we need some consultation on the furnishings, but yeah, I think paint and we're good. And millions of dollars later, 2 years later, they moved in, and yeah, little, I think I make a joke that I will at some point in my career do a graphic of, oh, we're so happy we bought the house. Oh my, this remodel is going to be great. Oh my God, it's going to cost this much. Oh my God, we hate everybody. We want everybody out of our house. Phil, when are we going to be done meeting with you? I don't think I like my contractor anymore. Are we really that far behind? And then finishes start going in. This is great again. I love it. Oh my gosh. So there's highs and lows. This project had highs and lows like everyone does. And it's just about having the staying power and keeping the dialogue open. Communication is key. But yeah, this started out as paint and turned into a great family home. They are extremely happy. He's a successful entrepreneur, business owner. She's a physician. They've got two great boys and a great property. The properties up here are a minimum 1 acre and can go up to 10 acres. And the boys love it. They can go out and explore and, kind of have some experiences that we don't often get in Southern California, in the LA area.
The kitchen. I, it's kind of what we talked about a little bit with there's a certain and I'm trying to get the orientation. I think I've got it based on the images that you've got there. But there's a laddered pantry, there's a side kitchen that where an oven and a microwave are, but then if I've got it right. But then you've got the main kitchen, which opens to a communal space, still separated from the dining room, but it's still an open concept. What was there? What did you change?
The Gosh, you're going to test my memory now, but the kitchen was got this scullery that sits off the kitchen was a dining room that hooked up to a smaller kitchen. So that was exploded and carved out into a separate but open dining room, like you said, and you observed correctly. It's open. It's three-sided. There's three sides open to that dining room, but it also has and it might be in some of the photos, but it has a reclaimed wood ceiling. So it's open, but it has a hug, for those intimate dinner parties that we all want to have and linger after. So dining room was moved, kitchen was opened up into the family room, and scullery and pantry were added, which was in the space planning that we worked hand in hand with the architect. We're very good at space planning and exposing clients to missed opportunities that may not be right in front of them. And I think, again, to going back to like, we're just going to paint this thing. We just said, can you give us the opportunity to just show you on paper, minimum investment, what this could be? And, when clients are if that's brought to them as an idea, it's kind of innocent and pretty easy to say yes to, and also a great open door for us to just like, okay, this could be it. This could be what this house realized itself into. And then you can expose them like, we can get you your dream home, if we do this. Of course, there's financial, aspect of it, but that's how this kind of rolled itself out. They weren't ready to do a remodel, but after they got, they were exposed to their opportunities. They saw the value in it.
Did you did you design the scullery?
Yes, we did.
How did you decide how you wanted to lay that out? And I'm speaking specifically of a couple of things. The laddered pantry, which I think is a remarkable use of space, the scullery itself, and then it looks like it's backed up, if I've got the orientation correctly, it's backed up to the pizza oven, which I think is a remarkable touch. And I'm curious, as is the case in many of those California ranches, was there something there before? I mean, it's funny. My grandmother used to have a house in Manhattan Beach that had a ranch style on it, which had an open rotisserie over a live flame inside
Yeah.
the kitchen, which was just. And I'm curious if there was something kind of wacky like that here.
Those are probably about in every third house in Rolling Hills. They still survive. Red, red, red brick rotisserie. I mean, you might as well have someone smoking a cigarette, drinking a martini in a A-line dress, standing right next to it. So that was the 50s. This community was developed in the, well, started earlier, but really a lot of the homes were built in the 50s, and it was all about that, that type of a kitchen. Um, I We did not have a red brick rotisserie in this home, but what we did have was a a mismatched floor plan that didn't promote California ranch living, which California ranch living is, really defined as far as effort, effortlessly, effortless living from indoor to outdoor without changing a lot of levels. Um, it was on the same level for most part, but it was so compartmentalized, and it just was like this puzzle that needed to be cracked open and reorganized. And I think that's the biggest challenge that we were faced with. And this client, believe it or not, was definitely a little bit. I think their aesthetic is a tad bit more contemporary, although you wouldn't. There's some contemporary nods in here, but they also were like, okay, if we're going to be moving to this ranch community, we'll embrace it. And like the wood countertops and things like that, that wasn't in there. They would never go for that if it weren't for this house. And we did have to put the scullery in front of or in between the kitchen and the pantry, which isn't great, but sometimes there's architectural challenges that either you embrace it or you just don't get that pantry or you don't get the scullery. They'll entertain, so this is a great catering setup. Keep people out of the kitchen, and they can still entertain and still cook. So it was designed with that in mind.
And one of the things I love too is this idea where you're designing for the future, but you've got sort of a foot in the past to respect the history of the home itself. And I don't know where this hallway is, but I love that there are barn doors incorporated. There are the wall panels with the barn X's uh, along the hallway too, which is sort of a throwback. I mean, you could certainly change those out to a different modern feel if you wanted to, but I feel like that was probably added as a throwback to the equestrian community that this is, when it came to choices like that, is that something that you usually try to do? Is when it comes to the historical value, but, whether it's the beams, leaving the beams the way they were, or refinishing them as opposed to painting them.
I think always respecting the architecture, as long as it's good. How can you reinvent it? What's a different twist on it? These beams were painted, so they didn't start out as stained, at least when we got them. Um, I think it kind of going back to maybe a little bit of a little more interest in contemporary design. Staining the beams wasn't appropriate for them. Like it might have been a little too rustic. So we did. You'll see incorporation of some modern mid-century sprinkles, but you also see some touches of ranch, in the study with those emerald green chairs, with the lucite legs. She loved those chairs. And then we mixed a lot of different things. She liked mixed media art. You're going to see, definitely um, kind of a quirky essence to the art, which I love. Like, there's a contemporary piece that sits in the dining room, and then there's a black and white Seguro cactus print in front of it. Like, what the heck does that mean? It's just, I think it's the whimsical aspect of it that was appealing to everybody, and especially the client. And then, again, we talked about trends earlier in the conversation. Yes, this is a ranch, but be careful of how much ranch elements, with that. You don't want to go thematic or kitschy. So we hit it occasionally, like you picked up in the back mudroom hall. There's a little bit more of a ranch wainscoting. Yes, we could have done something different. But they like that incorporation, and that's the back of the house, and that was kind of appropriate.
And by the way, just so you know, Phil, I could spend all day breaking this project down. I really do love it. I think there's so much to talk about. It's so aspirational, but certain things that you talked about, and themes, through lines throughout the home that change. For example, the subway tile in the kitchen, which is the classic white, and then in a bar, you have the mirrored subway tile, which is kind of a theme, a thematic connection to other spaces without doing it, in a matchy way, and making it so creatively adjoined, which I absolutely love. And it's so funny. I had the intent to talk to you about some other projects, but I have pretty much taken all the time we had on this one and didn't even get to the theater or the wine room or so much. But I love this project so much because it is so aspirational, and it is representative of a time, respectful of the architecture, with just a custom touches everywhere that clearly serves the client that you designed it for. Well done.
Well, thank you. I think, but behind every great picture, unfortunately, isn't the backstory of the client and the road traveled to get here. And I was thinking about this before we popped on the conversation. Is a pretty picture is a pretty picture, but a pretty picture with an elated client, so happy, that's using the house and thus creating more experiences with family and friends and making other people happy. That's the ultimate. And I wish that you could somehow incorporate that into a picture. Like, I want to put a little bubble down below these pictures and go, got to know that the client was amazingly happy, and everyone was, it's a very successful project. Because a pretty picture isn't as great as a pretty picture with an extremely happy and satisfied client. And that was definitely the case here. And I appreciate that, Josh. This wouldn't be, I think kind of points to maybe some of, like you said, I think was it your grandma that had a ranch house?
Yeah.
So that was obviously why you kind of went to this one. But I think so many of the projects we look at now are clean and modern. And we do a fair amount of projects at, Manhattan Beach, which are beautifully warm, modern. This one was such a derivative off of that it was just a welcome, a welcome project for us to speak more languages than we already do.
Well, I love it, and part of too why I think I gravitated towards that one, and there were a number of your projects that I wanted to talk to you about, but this one in particular, with the conversation we had leading up to this, and all of the things that you were talking about, it kind of. And again, I wish there were, remember pop-up video on VH1? I wish we could have that too. So while we're talking about these images, you can just do the bubble about reminding when you said this, because I think there's a lot of connective tissue in this, and sort of your philosophy and your ethos, and showing how it's demonstrably added to a project is really fun for me. And I hope you enjoyed this walk down memory lane too.
I did. You tested. You did. You test. This is an older project too, so I'm like, what? No, what was there? But no, I really enjoyed our conversation. I can see why Convo by Design is so successful. You make it easy to chat, and I'm glad we didn't have an agenda. It was just fun to talk design with you.
You're kind, and I appreciate it. And it was fun for me too. Thank you for doing this.
Absolutely. Have an awesome weekend.
The Design Hardware Showroom is a space where specifiers can go and find an incredible selection of high-end faucets, luxury tile, natural stone, wood floors, and bespoke hardware, and so much more. Select products are presented in a holistic manner, strategically arranged to stimulate creativity and transition your vision from the conceptual stage to a fully realized space. You will find everything you're looking for, even the products by brands you didn't know you didn't know. Surprise and delight. Am I right? All under one roof on 3rd Street in Los Angeles, just up the street from the Grove. Conveniently located, free parking available. Stop by to find inspiration, collect samples, get expert advice, and tackle everything on your specification list all in one place. Visit them online at designhardware.com, at Design Hardware and Flooring on the socials, or in the real world, 6053 West 3rd Street in Los Angeles. Thank you, Phil. Amazing. Thank you for listening. If you like this episode, please share it with a friend or colleague who loves design and architecture as much as you do, and subscribe to Convo by Design wherever you get your favorite podcasts. And continue the conversation. Boy, I'm asking you for a lot. And continue the conversation on Instagram at Convo by Design with an X, and send me those emails with guest suggestions, show locations, show ideas to convobydesign@outlook.com. Thank you to my partner sponsors, TimberTech, the AZEC Company, Pacific Sales, Best Buy, Loam AI, and Design Hardware. These companies support the shelter industry, so give them an opportunity to specify on your next project. Thanks again for listening. Until next time, be well, stay focused, and rise above the chaos.